Danvers. My name is Mark Zuberek, and welcome to the Topics of the Town. And today we have with us Matthew Duggan. He is a co-host, and John Toomey. So what we'll do is we'll get into, well, I don't know, I had this crazy comment. You know, we have this level of beards. John is clean-shaven. I'm halfway there, but mine is white, and Duggan has a real baseball beard.
I've just given up completely.
So, welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We have a show that's packed with a lot of information, and what we'd like to do is start with the Topics of the Town news reporting, and we are trying to be, or we are, a news broadcasting program. We do it reporting as direct and comprehensive. Our stories are in depth and represent stories that no other news media wants to report. And we have those examples already. We will always report only the truth, sometimes with our opinion included. So don't be surprised if we include our opinion. First thing, what we want to do is Topics of the Town programming update of recent stories. And what we have is, I have a couple of items, and John has some items. Community news, current news brief, and a monthly advertising magazine. We received, or I received, a supplement to the Salem News this past week. And all it has is a couple of stories about Halloween filming in the St. John's Prep area.
And lots of ads.
And the rest of it is advertising. Yep. So that's not really community news. We still need to continue and expand our investigation of why do we not carry any local news from Danvers.
Well, newspapers are, in effect, dying.
Well, newspapers are an advertising agency. That's about it.
That's it, yes.
So that's where some of the problems come through. Next, what we have is we have the Selectmen's meeting update, which I looked at the agenda at the time when it was issued on Friday before. And there's a very interesting agenda item that says the board will hear a request from Andrea Daly regarding naming rights to town buildings. What does that suggest to you?
It suggests kind of implementing some type of policy that would be broad in scope, that would cover just any town-owned building or property, for that matter.
Correct. A park or a baseball field, something like that.
Yeah.
John, what did that portray to you?
Well, the naming of a public building or ground or something, to me, it doesn't have anything to do, or it has really not primarily do with the area that we're talking about. But it's more or less honoring people.
Correct.
Somebody who has done a great job, who has done something for the town, and so forth. I think that's the primary area that should be discussed when we're doing something like this. I'm a little confused as to who actually has the authority to do this.
That's right. See, the first thing I thought of, John, is there a policy or procedure for identifying and naming or renaming a building that we have in town? I mean, we have the Peabody Institute Library, we have the Town Hall, doesn't have a name except Danvers Town Hall. The grammar schools have specific names. So I'm just, when I read this, I said, well, they may be devising a policy or presenting a policy that should be implemented by the selectmen or town meeting. But in retrospect, sitting there and listening to the selectmen's meeting, it was right away, it was presented as a proposal to the Board of Selectmen. And I don't even know why they went to the Board of Selectmen. They really don't approve everything. But the group of individuals came in and they wanted to rename the Senior Center. The Senior Center has been in existence for, I don't know, 20-some years. And it's always been Danvers Senior Center. So they want to rename it as Danvers Wayne P. Markey Community Center. And rightfully so, and I don't always agree with Mr. Trask or Mr. Bennett, but they basically raised the issue. Accreditation of the current senior center is under the name of the senior center and not under a community center. This appears to me like it's a proposal to do the same thing Peabody did with the Tourigian Community Center that they have identified at the grammar school that's located at. So, not begrudging anybody's proposal, but it was done sort of underhanded. And what I would suggest, and that's what the selectmen did, is basically they took it under advisement and they may propose a warrant article for the special town meeting in February that we're planning to have. So that's one story.
Well, let me throw in this.
Go ahead.
The one thing that occurs to me is, okay, we call it the Wayne Markey Senior Center. Are you kidding? I bet you most people are just going to say the Senior Center. Down in Peabody, they have a senior center that's named after, I believe it was a former mayor.
Yes.
But they don't call it that. That's the Senior Center.
Well, there's a sign in front, Tourigian
there's a sign on
Community Center.
There's a sign on the Danvers Senior Center, but nobody ever reads it.
I know that.
But what I'm getting at is,
it doesn't matter.
This is something that is offering a little honor to Wayne, and which I can understand, and I really don't see what all the questioning is about. Why not?
Well, I can chime in on that. So I think there were two things. There was the renaming of the building, and then there was also the changing the way that the building is going to be used. So today it's called the Senior Center. The proposal is to call it a community center, so you widen the audience that would be using the facility, and it's not that big. So I think from a lot of the feedback that I've been hearing from townsfolk is that they don't think that it's the right path to follow to open up as a senior center.
Okay, but I asked you a question. You brought it up. The community center, the senior center, and all the people who were discussing this. There's what, 27,000 people in town? And I'll bet you there weren't more than a dozen people discussing this.
99.9% of the population of Danvers doesn't even know this has transpired.
Yes, I agree with you.
So the thing is that we have to, I think all we want to do is ask the question, present the, the proposal, because it was, I don't know, we had a individual come up to the podium and say, why don't you just pass it? You've done it in the past. Why don't we just pass it? That's not how it works. Is there a process or a procedure for naming or renaming buildings? And that was never answered last
No,
night.
I don't think there is. I think there's one for benches.
Right.
So there's a process for naming benches, but really to open it up to the town meeting and let them have some input in it, and the selectmen can create their warrant article, or it can be a citizen's petition. So special town meeting in February for zoning.
Now, do we have a committee that's responsible for investigating and renaming buildings? I haven't seen
I
one.
doubt it.
Okay.
Probably hasn't happened in
So it's
quite a
going to
few
town
years.
meeting.
It's enough for now.
Yep, yeah, it's going to town meeting.
Now, the other item on the selectmen's agenda was the salary and evaluation of the town manager. Town manager, as of Tuesday evening, is going to be paid $210,000 per year, plus his other benefits, which include insurance, life insurance, car allowance, vacation time, and everything else. So we're having a management growth in this town, which basically is going to be the same for the superintendent of schools. Pretty close, pretty damn close. We'll be watching that, but we just wanted to report that. Like it was said on Tuesday night, escalation has been growing. Everybody's getting paid more, but right now we have the town manager is at $210,000 salary, plus another 23 managers or assistant managers that are getting paid between $120,000 to $180,000 a year. So we have a very heavy management team in this town, and I don't know, I hate to even say this, but I'm beginning to appreciate Wayne, because Wayne was very frugal about both the costs and the assignments. He combined a lot of positions.
Let me throw this one in.
Go ahead.
What's your problem? The selectmen approved it, correct?
Yes.
And basically they send it through town meeting, part of the budget.
Yeah.
And do you hear anybody
Nope.
bitching about it? Do you hear anybody really even discussing it?
What's the terminology that they're using on Trump? Quid pro quo?
Quid pro quo. yeah.
Quid pro quo. Well, the quid pro quo to this is that the town manager is going to propose in the next budget an increase in the selectmen's stipend, and the chairman is going to get $4,500.
Yeah,
and
but
the rest of them are going to get
It
$4,000.
keeps coming back to what I brought up.
Absolutely.
You talking about Trump. Trump got elected.
Right.
And that's basically, if anybody doesn't like it or wants to say anything about it, do it. Right now, the problem is you're just sitting there not saying a word.
That's right.
And everything's just going through.
So just to make things very clear is that the selectmen have run understanding that they were going to get paid or stipend of $3,000 versus $4,000, but now they're all getting a raise.
Maybe we'll have more people running for selectmen.
Maybe we should run for selectmen. I'm telling you, this is serious business. Okay. I have a quick update, and you know that I have been attending the Water and Sewer Commissioners meeting, and the Water and Sewer Commissioners have been trying to resolve an issue, because at one time one of the wells had PFAS chemicals that were showing up in a larger capacity than permitted by the EPA. Well, guess what? Toxic chemicals can be dumped into the Merrimack River, officials say, And these are chemicals that are stored and running from a dump in New Hampshire. They're going to dump them into the Merrimack River. So those chemicals are going to come down all the way into Newburyport, Amesbury, and all those communities.
And those are sourced.
Maybe some of these PFAS chemicals are already infiltrating into our pumps because our pumps are running from underground. They're pumping the water. So there may be an aquifer that's already there. So that's something that the Water and Sewer Commission should be watching and making sure that our water is pure.
Well, I think Danvers, it was a water report recently that said Danvers had some of the highest levels in the state.
At the time when they tested it, yes, and that was about 6 months ago. That was identified, I think it was right after we went to the water and sewer, the water treatment plant. And the water treatment plant does a wonderful job. However, they can't control these types of chemicals. So, just two word of advice. That's all we wanted to bring up. Water quality, and then we have John has a clip number 1, which is related to the gun sales at Dick's Sporting Goods. So we can run that clip 1.
Yeah, here's Dick's. Once you get inside, you go over to the right. You can see the parking lot's pretty well filled. This gives you an idea of what it's like in there as far as the gun section. Dick's has decided to eliminate selling the AR-15 assault rifle. As you can see, they sell all types of weapons. I call them weapons, not guns. They're weapons as far as I'm concerned. And this is Dick's, and you can see the classification, the assortment, the variety. Dick's has removed the assault weapons from 100 stores, and they're considering removing them altogether. This is all part of the gun control that's taking over this country, supposedly. And
John, these are mostly hunting rifles.
Yeah, they're shotguns.
And shotguns and
yes.
right now.
Rifles.
But I mean, they did have assault rifles in the past. I don't know if they still have them. Do they still have them?
I don't know. I wasn't able to
Doesn't look
locate
like
anyone
No.
who I got talked to. So
No, they're all sport guns.
this gives you an idea of what it's like over there. And it's. I grew up back in the days where guns were guns.
Right.
After going through the Second World War as a kid, to me, guns are now weapons. Whether it's a hunting weapon or target practice or whatever you want to call it. But we should have stricter regulations to control all of this.
I think we have the stricter methods of determining somebody's qualifications for
background checks.
And why do we have so many murders with people using weapons that are illegal?
That's true. I don't know why.
They come from out of state, I think.
Well,
Many of them.
they do, and the only ones that really have the assault rifles and assault weapons are basically criminals. Look at what happened in Mexico just this week.
Well, look at what happens here in the United States.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, you can't pick up the paper any day without reading where someone used a weapon, either shooting someone or robbing someone. Or that's my opinion. Next.
All right. So, I'm missing something here, but that's okay. We'll come back to it. The next story that we have is basically the story that we started last show. Mr. Hunt and Mr. Lemazny were supposed to be at this presentation, but there was a conflict in schedule. So we're going to continue the discussion, and what we want to do is we want to run clip number 2 just to start this thing off. And then we'll go into the subject. Okay. John?
Well, look at all the traffic that's there. Look at all the parking spaces that are taken up. And this is Sunday morning. I mean, if it's like this on a Sunday morning, what's it like on a regular day? You look at all these buildings, and the majority of them are 2 stories high.
There's the one that's going to be 3 stories high.
Yes, and that's going up rapidly.
And you know, that building got the permission to expand to the 3rd story without any zoning change. They got it through a zoning proposal.
Now there's a good example. Here's whatever parking is available is like this. Side streets, behind buildings, but no great areas. Like here's a fairly good sized parking lot, but this is one of the few.
Is that behind Verizon?
Yeah, that's a private lot.
Right. That's a private
That's
lot.
municipal.
Right. Now there's a big lot behind Brothers.
But you notice in the back is all residential homes. Now here we are downtown again. We're looking down towards the center. And as usual, as I say, this is Sunday morning. And you notice how many cars are parked there. Now the proposed overlay district that they're putting on top of this is going to allow, what, 3 stories high?
45
and they're
feet.
encouraging residential.
Right. That's the encouraging part is residential,
Now here
so
we
it's
are.
congested.
This is the square. This is downtown center. And that's looking down towards the port. Now right across the street, you notice that building's been empty on the top level for some time.
That's the atrium.
Yes.
And that has had various businesses located on that 2nd story, but nobody ever stays because there's no parking. The parking lot that's adjacent to it is a public lot.
2 hour.
2 hour limit, right. So they jump up and down and they move their cars from one spot to another just to avoid the meter maid. Or the parking attendant.
Parking officer.
Parking officer, excuse me. I know. And the thing is that the downtown needs a facelift and an update anyway. That has been that way for the last 25 years, hasn't changed.
Well, I think they're gaining a more even footing with businesses that are located at the mall. It seems, you know, the mall seems to be losing favor with a lot of shoppers. So I think, you know, if we can empower these downtown businesses, it's easier to compete.
One of the problems is when you use the word business. When I was growing up here in town, downtown was retail.
Right.
Today, very little retail.
It's all service.
What I call service,
Right.
yes. And I don't know just how attractive that is. Amazon and the various computer styles are attracting so many people that to me, retail is going out. It's going to disappear. And here's more vacant buildings. But you can see how little parking there is.
There's no street parking really to speak of, because even at the funeral homes, you have to park on the municipal lots, which have been dedicated for various business purposes.
Yeah. It's designed to be short term. There are no parking meters, but with enforcement of the time limits.
Well, you know what? Personally, I would hate to have them propose parking meters.
I don't think it's necessary.
Look at Beverly.
Well,
Look at Beverly.
I don't think that's going to solve anything.
No.
You're going to have space to put in parking. You can either create zoning that requires the developer
Off-street
to
parking.
put in parking,
Yep.
or I talk to a lot of people about downtown, and one thing that amazes me is how often people will say to me, well, I don't go downtown anymore. It's too busy. I can't find a parking space.
Right. And a lot of people, what they do is drive around through the neighborhoods to get to the other side of the square.
Well, see, this is one of my major concerns.
Yes.
I live on Franklin Street, which is just off the square. And if you build up the square and you don't provide any parking, they're going to be parking down around my area.
See, Matt, one of the things that I've noticed, and one of the questions that we have to ask ourselves, because I don't care what kind of zoning you propose and implement and get paid for by the state from 40R, it's not going to improve anything. Is the climate, business climate, improving, stable, or declining in Danvers Square, basically? Because that's our center of our town. I don't see much of an improvement. I think all of the storefronts are occupied, and the building owners or landowners who have property located on Maple Street or High Street, their biggest complaint over the last 30 years, and when I was on the Board of Selectmen, that was the same complaint. We cannot attract people to occupy the second story because they have become used to using the second floor as a storage area. So now, even if we propose or pass the planning proposal for this intense development of the second and third story for home use or residential, it is going to not improve or eliminate or devote any attention to the business, because all there's going to be is residential upstairs.
Well, let me again throw this one in. You put residential up there, and today people who are living in residential invariably have 1 or 2 cars or even more cars.
Right.
So where are they going to park?
So what you're telling me, and what I'm hearing, and I'm hearing this from the outside in the community, is we're proposing and passing planning or zoning that will increase the density but not remediate the parking that we have as a problem already. Now, you have seen, I have a copy of the parking study that they have done about 2 or 3 years ago. And what they're talking about is there are parking areas that are outside the business district. And what they want to do is they want to devote half of those parking spots, because they're not being used because they're so far out of the square. They want to use them for development, make more residential units. So that the problem is, I don't think we're solving the problem that we have, and we are just adjusting the zoning to increase the density.
Well, to me, one of the reasons behind this rezoning is they're looking for more sources of revenue. And new building will create new taxes, so that's going to increase their income. And that's what they're doing, is they're spending money, and therefore they're looking for new sources of income.
Yeah. Matt, you've been watching this development.
Yep. So just a little backstory on this. So the town is proposing overlay districts for the downtown corridor and also the High Street corridor. So it's similar to what was passed at town meeting for the Hot Watt property at the corner of Hobart and Maple. So this is something that's going to be before town meeting in February. And
You want to run the clips?
Yeah, sure. We'll show 3A, I think.
Clip 3A.
Yep. So this is the overlay. So today this is commercial and commercial 1A. So what you're looking at here is at the very top boundary is Hobart Street and Maple, and then up behind the mobile station. And then the green horizontal line, that's the rail trail. And then we come east down the map to through the square, and then the green square at the bottom is the High Street Cemetery. So that's all commercial. The pink color is C1, so that's no residential is allowed in there. The C1A is Cherry Street, and you've seen likely the amount of development and the increase in density along that stretch. But I think the objective here is to inject residential into this area to make the downtown more vibrant in the evening and possibly generate more foot traffic and make the businesses there, attract new businesses and make the existing ones more vibrant financially.
This is the present zoning?
No, this is the overlay that will be before town meeting. But this is the district that's in play here.
Right now it's commercial industrial, right?
It's just commercial.
Just
so
commercial.
There's no residential allowed in that pink area.
But there are residentials.
Yeah, they're
already
grandfathered.
They're
There's
going to allow
grandfathered
residential in there.
Yes.
New residential, yeah,
Yes.
without going before the ZBA.
So the overlay district is putting more or less residential on the over.
Yeah, so the
overlay.
residential will be on the second and third
Yes.
floors, commercial will be on
Okay.
the first floor. And the density will be increased because Mark mentioned the chapter 40R, which is a Mass General law similar to 40B. 40R is sort of the carrot to the stick of 40B. There's some financial incentives for the town to pass this. And it overrides the zoning that's there today in terms of density. So when you look at the perimeter there in white, those neighborhoods are already, and that's all pretty much precinct 1, those neighborhoods are all small lots. The parking is already tough to begin with. So the concern is the spillover from...
That's where I am.
Yeah, so the spillover into these neighborhoods where they're already in some areas there's signage saying, during a weekday, 1 hour parking, so there really hasn't been a whole lot of understanding about how the impact that this is going to have. There was a workshop last month that was attended by several dozen residents, but they really don't, it's hard to get your head around zoning. It's complicated topic, and you don't know bad zoning until you see it, and by then it's too late.
Well, the other major question I have is, okay, a selectman came up with this proposal, and basically what they did was they opened the door for zoning. You can go in and put in industrial or commercial, you can put in residential. But who's interested? Is there any big demand out there for this?
Well, see, John and Matt, I attended that same meeting that you're talking about where they had to formally present their case to the general public, and very few people really attended that, but we made a point of attending it. And some of the questions, and I'll just raise the questions. Why are we really doing this? what is driving this proposal? And this is something that John has been asking as well. What results have we achieved at the hot watt zoning that we passed? Now that was 2 years ago, I believe. And the thing is that the question that I raise is, what have we really learned from that? Currently, we haven't learned anything except that we're giving a blank check to the developer, basically. You can do these kinds of things in that area, which is great. But by having a proposal doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen. Yeah. It's going to happen whatever is going to happen.
Can I just speak to that
Go
just
ahead.
briefly? So today, or before the overlay for the hot watt, that was zoned industrial 1, so that allowed you to, by right, to build any type of industrial type facility. So allowing the residential overlay gives the developer more flexibility. So.
Well, one of the things that was discussed at that meeting as well is they're trying to control the cost of housing. How do you introduce price controls or price of the housing that is being built? It's going to be built and sold for the market rate. Yeah. However, there are strings attached to this, and I hate to do this, but we have a bribe from the state because of 40R that we're going to get in this proposal for the remainder of the square up to High Street, $600,000. Well, for the hot watt piece, we were promised $345,000, I believe, and we got $200,000. So that's still additional incentives that we're not getting. Price control in the zoning code. How can you put a price control in the zoning code? You can't. All you can do is limit the number of bedrooms, the number of spaces for parking, the number of people that can live in that apartment. That's about it. And we, as a town, through this zoning, cannot control costs. And that's what they were getting at that meeting. So I'm glad I brought those notes because I asked those questions. They couldn't answer.
Actually, so there is some cost constraints because there's a certain percentage of the dwelling units that have to be affordable, considered to be affordable housing.
It's 10%, isn't it?
You know what?
It could be close to 20.
20%. They're talking 20.
Yeah.
However, you define to me what is affordable. That depends on who you're talking to.
Well, it's not somebody that's for a poor person. It's just it's
income level
based on the size.
Right.
So it's not. It may be a family of 4 with like making $60,000 a year. So it's somebody that's middle class.
Yeah, but the cost of housing really depends upon demand.
Correct.
And right now,
do we have the demand?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where?
In my neighborhood, there's quite a bit of demand because you see the turnover in home sales. It's quite dramatic.
Matt, you've been doing this. Oh, Matthew, I'm sorry. What are other communities doing about improving the business climate? Because without the business community, you are really barking up the wrong tree with the residentials up on top. So you need the business community to generate the traffic and the interest of our residents that want to live downtown. John, you live downtown. You can walk to almost anything in the square.
That's why I live there.
That's right. But the thing is, what are other communities doing to make that happen? Have you seen anything?
Yeah, I think there's been some examples. I'll say in Reading, there's been development, 40R development, but it's been constrained into certain parcels and it's not linear like the proposal here is in Danvers, where you start at Hobart Street and go all the way to 128. It's not that type of development. it tends to be more site specific, like the hot what.
See, what I feel, and take it for what it's worth, is we can introduce all kinds of zoning proposals and permit different kinds of construction, but without the business community, without the activity that happens in the square or in the vicinity of the square, that'll never come true. Maybe in 50 years, maybe that it will. But right now, I think people are expecting results right away, and I don't think we'll see them for a long time.
You know, it could be 20, 30 years down the road, but you need the zoning should always be flexible, right? You can't just pass zoning in 1960 and think that that's the wherewithal, you know, that's going to solve everything for the next 100 years. That doesn't work that way.
Yeah. You want to run?
Yeah, I want to talk about High Street because that's a little bit different. So this is the High Street overlay. So on the middle on the right there is, I think that's the Hunt Street where People's Bank is there, just west of Porter. And then it runs eastward towards the lower left-hand corner is the 128 interchange. And then the pink line at the top is the railroad right-of-way behind Walgreens there. So this is all classified, this entire area that's in color is classified as Industrial 1. So by right, you can build car washes or machine shops.
Factories.
Yeah, by right, you can just go in there and build anything you want. So the objective by doing a residential overlay, so you'll see the light blue buildings. That's that's what you could see. So, for example, there's behind McDonald's where there's a lot of wide open. There's a wide open space there up on the top. That could be developed into kind of some townhouses, landscaped. But it just gives the developer some flexibility because there's a lot of single-story structures along High Street, dry clean store, liquor store, old gas stations. Those, from what I've seen closer to Boston, those are all kind of obsolete. The land is so valuable that a single-story structure doesn't provide a return on investment. So allowing the developer to kind of move the structure closer to the street, put the parking in the back, and then have residential on the second and third floor with setbacks, I think is kind of the wave of the future. As Boston gets built out, the core area of the city, you'll see more and more developers coming out towards Danvers to look for new opportunities.
To congest it more.
But if they're successful and they attract residential, they attract more people.
Right.
Doesn't that increase cost?
Traffic.
Schools?
Yes. Yes.
Water, fire, police. I mean, all the services we provide as a town, if you increase the population, they automatically increase.
Yeah, well, I think the population is going to increase one way or the other, either through 40B, which we have little say in. I just wanted to talk to your point about the schools. So 40R has a specific clause in there where the state will cover the increased costs for.
The state has been making promises.
Well, that's the.
They don't keep them.
Well, I think a lot of the funding for 40R comes from the sale of surplus state property, so that's a finite source. And what they promised today, you know, could be easily taken away tomorrow.
Well, if you've been reading or listening to the newspapers lately, and the State House, is that the formula for supporting education in our town is going to go down because we are more affluent than Lynn, Haverhill, Lawrence, Salem, and we're going to pay through the nose for education. And the thing is that our education, we have a brief story, but we'll pick it up next time in regard to education. But what the key question right now is, Are we doing everything that we can to improve the quality of downtown? And by proposing these zoning changes, that will not solve all the problems. We need to have the town, town versus economic development. I'm talking about economic development. We have a department in Town Hall that should be reaching out to our business community and expanding or helping to improve the business that is going on in the square. And service is not the only thing that can be done down there. All we have is restaurants and nail polishers and hairdressers and barbershops.
Well, if there's businesses that feel that the town should be doing more from them, they should make themselves known. I mean, the town can't, read their minds. So,
well, as you heard me say in the past, and I will continue saying this, 4 or 5 years ago, we used to have a monthly business morning meeting on a Monday at either Town Hall or one of the organizations. That has stopped. There is very little communication going on between business and the Town Hall. Town Hall should be encouraging going out and saying, what can we do to help you?
So is that a lack of interest on both sides, or?
No, that's the lack of interest from Town Hall. Town Hall has basically abandoned that outreach because it served for many years. It worked well. I don't know. Maybe the business community needs to rise up and grab the ball this time.
Well, downtown should be, shouldn't shut down at 5 o'clock. So whatever we can do to make it more vibrant into the late evening.
And the square is not owned by the business, it's owned by all of us residents. And Town Hall represents us as residents. So, what can the town do to assist? We just talked about that. How is the town proceeding to assist? I've heard very little. I've interviewed our economic development director and all of those managers down there, and there's very little. We cannot rely only on the zoning proposals that are planned to expand housing and street-level storefronts. In Danvers, we need help to improve the business climate so it is easier to improve the downtown. One of the questions I've raised, and even the selectmen have raised that same question, and I'll give the selectmen credit. Is there a punch list of what steps needs to be taken for a business to start in the town of Danvers? What permits do I need? Where do I need to go? How long should I wait for something like that? Because some of these people are trying to start up a business, but they don't know where to go. I've asked for that. This was raised by the Board of Selectmen, and they didn't understand it at that time either.
Yeah, but Mark, one of the basics of business is need. There has to be a need for the business. And downtown, to me, has been losing the need for businesses for years. It's changed radically. The retail has just about disappeared. The size of the businesses that are there has been reduced. They're all basically small businesses. Right. And it's obvious that there is not a real need, desire to come into town and start a business because there's no need. There's no guarantee, more or less, that you can make money if you establish a business there.
You may be absolutely right. The problem is that there's no employment for the residents that we're planning on situating on the second and third floor of these buildings. So there's a trade-off. And right now, without business, we're not going to have success in locating these residential units on the second and third floor of these expanded buildings. And what we're going to do is we're going to have vacancies if they ever are built. So what we'll do is we'll continue the discussion, and what we'll do is John has a very special clip number 4, which is on the Route 128 bridge. And John, take it away.
I just want to, this is just a warning to you. If you use 128 and you haven't heard this, they're going to fix up the bridge over the river, and between 114, see, exit 25, that's 114. And you're going down, you're going north on 128. And as you go down further, you go over the bridge and you come to Endicott Street. And you can see the amount of traffic that's there now. Well, the big thing is they're going to start this construction. There's the bridge, whatever you can see. Yeah. We're going to start this construction sometime in January, February, so forth. And when they do, it's going to take 5 years. My God. If you use 128 to get back and forth to work and so forth, this must be completely wow. And we're coming up now on exit 24, and this is Endicott Street. Well,
that's
the
the
big
bridge
thing
right
is,
there, right?
exit 25 and exit 24 are going to be near the end of the construction. It's going to be closed. So if you are going down 128, or if you're going down 114 or Endicott Street, you're going to be shut off. So keep this in mind and pay attention to what's going on. You've got quite a while to go before all this happens, but as I say, I'm just trying to warn you in advance. Fortunately, you don't see much traffic here, but the traffic there in the morning is disastrous.
There should be some neighborhood or resident meetings and interaction for the planning of this replacement. 5 years is, you know what they're going to have to do? They're going to have to rebuild that bridge slice by slice.
Yeah, I think they're always going to be.
Well, they're also going to change the speed limit on 128 in that section to 45 miles an hour. Can you imagine what it's going to be like in the morning or in the afternoon, getting back and forth to work, and you're going down there? Wow.
Bad enough now.
So that bridge is over, that's over the Waters River? That goes over behind the Endicott.
Yeah, it's not very visible when you're going down. Most people don't even realize there's a bridge there.
Right.
It's a small bridge.
You
Well, we can remember how long it took to fix the last water.
Well, they're talking about
the last water river.
They're talking about $25 million.
Oh yeah. No, those things are not cheap. And it doesn't improve the traffic, it just complicates it for now. Hopefully, well, 128 is undersized as well, so the North Shore and Gloucester and Manchester by the Sea and everybody else is increasing population, and all they're doing is commuting just like we are out of Danvers. Yep. They're going into Boston, they're going into Peabody, Salem. So that is a good clip, John. Thank you very much. The other thing that I want to bring up, we have a few minutes left, is that we are planning a special show that I think will be very interesting to identify what does the town meeting in Danvers really responsible for, and what do they really do? What I have started doing is identifying an individual from each precinct, because I want to be, you know, fair and equitable. But there are new members. There are members that have been appointed instead of elected. They have members, we have members that I'm planning on inviting that have been there for 20 years. I've been there for, you know, at least 20 years. The thing is that Matt, you're a town meeting member.
14 years.
John, you're not at
No,
this time.
I used to be, but I've retired.
So you're a retiree from the town meeting, and I'm still active as well. But we need to discuss the responsibilities. Why do we get elected, or why do we run?
What does town meeting do?
That's exactly right. I have a whole list of questions from three of the individuals that I have spoken to, and those questions are serious. I mean, I know that I do a lot of talking at town meeting because I'm a big mouth, but I express my opinion. And that's what town meeting is about, is not relying on somebody else doing your thinking for you. The town meeting is a legislative body of the town of Danvers.
You know, see, that word legislative,
Yeah?
that implies it is an active group.
Right.
It does things. And again, the impression I have is that it no longer is an active group. It doesn't come up with proposals.
Well,
it just accepts whatever the town manager and the selectmen propose.
We have an elected town meeting, for one thing, and it's by design that the current town meeting membership has become a rubber stamp for everything that the town hall or the board of selectmen, or now what they have made it very clear is that if it's approved by the finance committee, it's gospel. That's not true. So what we need to do is we need to address why are we there? What are we supposed to do? And I even went as far as asking for the town meeting member handbook, which some members have never seen or they didn't know it existed. So I have a town meeting member book.
I have one of those.
You have one?
Yep.
So you're one of the few. So what we're going to do is we're going to plan on that for sometimes, I think, end of November. And what we'll do is we'll explore the issues, and we hope to have good participation. And what I want to do is I want to thank the viewers, and I want to thank you, Matt, Matthew Duggan, and John Toomey. And we also have some oldies but goodies videos that John did in the past, and I have some other ones with John Zavaglia, so we'll be showing those when the time comes during the DCAT schedule. So good night, Danvers. Thank you for being here, and hope to see you on November 21st.